Welcome to the Habits and Hustle podcast, a podcast that uncovers the rituals, unspoken habits, and mindsets of extraordinary people. A podcast powered by Habit Nest. Now here's your host, Jennifer Cohen.
So we have a really cool guest on Habits and Hustle today. We have Cash Warren. Cash Warren is an entrepreneur, and he's also the husband to, this little person you may have heard of, Jessica Alba.
Hi.
And but you are no slouch yourself either. You've got some great credits behind you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me onto this wonderful treadmill.
I know. Well, listen, I'm happy to have you, and I actually am surprised to hear that you're not like a big workout person. I thought you were going to be. I got to be honest.
Jessica's much better at that than I am. I really like my dad bod. I'm proud of my dad bod, and but I just started getting back into it, which I'm excited about. My energy levels are picking up.
Good.
Which is awesome. I started to feel a little bit lackadaisical and kind of lethargic. And so I was like, maybe the 18 months off wasn't the best thing for me.
Well, why did you take the 18 months off?
Laziness.
Oh, okay. So
well, you have 3 kids, a company, married, like
life,
just life happens, and that became less of a priority, but now it's moved back up the charts.
Well, that's really good. That's what happens though, right? Like one day turns into 18 months, and
quickly.
Next thing you know, right?
Yep.
You're kind of like huffing and puffing at 1 mile an hour. Not to say you are, of course, but what's your speed right now?
My heart rate is. I moved it to 1.5 to try to keep up.
That's good. There's always these handlebars too, if you need them. Just giving you some options. That's all. So let's talk about your career. So, you're impressive. You went to Yale, right?
Yep.
And you were also in the in the film business for many years.
Yes. So I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to Crossroads High School in Santa Monica.
Crossroads.
And then I went to Yale back in New Haven, which was an amazing experience for me, but I couldn't really hack that weather. So as soon as I graduated, I moved back home to LA and have been at it ever since. I first graduated, I worked at William Morris, which is a talent agency. So I started out as an assistant in a talent agency.
I know that well.
In the mailroom as a trainee, and had a blast, but I knew being an agent wasn't really for me.
How long were you an assistant?
At there, I was at William Morris for about a year.
Okay.
And I worked without naming. I worked for a really powerful person there.
No, tell us who.
His name's Jim Wyatt. So he was the CEO and chairman of William Morris at the time, and I was his assistant sitting inside of his office. And a funny story. So every day around 11 o'clock. There's this apartment building on Charlieville right across the street from William Morris. And around 11, this guy would come outside with his hair all tasseled, coffee stains on his white t-shirt and his boxer shorts. And he would stand outside and smoke a cigarette like without a care in the world. And I would see the way Jim would look at this guy with like envy, because he was basically kind of thinking like, how simple of a life is that? How wonderful is that?
Oh, wow.
And so my seat, I'm like, wait, everyone in this building wants to be you, Jim, and you want to be that guy. I need to get off this hamster wheel. And so
that's a good story, because it's true. People never really know what goes on behind closed doors, right? And people over-glamorize or could over-glamorize Hollywood, right?
Yes.
So I like that story.
It was very helpful for me. And so I took off from there, and I started working with this director, Tim Story, who was an up-and-coming director. He had just had a movie called Barbershop. And so he was a young guy from LA. And I started working with him, and I was his assistant / kind of director of development, helping find new projects. And so that took me out of the office, out of William Morris, and I got to go on location and start making movies, which was a blast.
Well, first of all, working for Jim Wyatt, who's like a huge powerhouse. Tim Story, everyone knows who that is. Well, most people would know. Like, how were you able to get those? Because for people who, not working in Hollywood, those are coveted positions.
Yeah.
So how did you even get those opportunities?
So I first got an interview at William Morris. Like, if you apply, you send in your resume. When you're first graduating, you have no work experience, so they're really looking for where'd you go to school and do you have any relationships, with the agency. Which I didn't, but I got an interview probably because of the Yale thing.
Right.
Started out in the mailroom with about 50 other trainees, and there was one thing I did that for some reason allowed me to get promoted over everybody else pretty quickly to Jim's desk, which when you're in the mailroom, you just are delivering mail and delivering packages from one office to the next. And Jim's office asked me to go FedEx something for them. And so I took the package, went and FedExed it, and then all I did was Xerox the tracking code and bring that back to the office so they could track their package. And they flipped out. They were like, no one has done this. You're promoted. And so in 2 days, I got promoted to Jim Wyatt's desk. And it was just the simple thing of following up, I guess.
Wow, but also you went that extra little mile that
Yes.
maybe the other people, like that shows something about your character, about your work ethic. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, and I think we look for that in all the young talent that we're hiring and stuff, is somebody that just does that little something that separates them from the pack. And then Tim's story was a client of the agency.
Right.
And so when I knew I didn't want to be an agent and I wanted to leave, I asked all the agents in the building, do you have any young clients that would be nice for me to go partner up with and go work for? And so I interviewed with a bunch of different people, and I was kind of fortunate that I got to meet Tim and at the right time and the right place, I guess.
But he wasn't, was he as big at that point? No, right?
No,
he had that one movie, right?
Yes, and so everyone was kind of like, wait, you're leaving Jim Wyatt's office to go work for this unproven director? And I was like, yeah, he's awesome. And so he had only had Barbershop at the time, but then when I jumped on board, that's Fantastic Four he directed, which is when I met Jessica.
Oh.
And he's now gone on to do I think I read some stat the other day that he has more franchises to his credit than any other director in the history of Hollywood, or something along the like.
Really?
It's like him and Spielberg, I want to say. It's like crazy.
He's that level?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. In terms of just franchises, movies of his that have been turned into sequels or the third installment. And so he had Fantastic Four, he had Barbershop, he had, I don't know, I can't even.
You can't even remember all of them. And that's how you met your wife.
That's how I met my wife, in Vancouver. Yes.
I'm Canadian, so that, yeah.
Where in Canada are you from?
I'm from, well, have you heard of Winnipeg?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Don't say, I love how you say, yes, of course. It's you'd be surprised. Most people.
Winnipeg Flyer. No, what's your NHL team?
Winnipeg Jets.
Yes.
Yes.
The Jets. Yeah.
Good. Yes. So I'm from, and then I lived in Toronto for like most of my adult life, or
Okay.
like most of my when I was 18 till.
Okay.
Or 17, sorry. Anyway, the point is, I'm Canadian, so Vancouver, I get you.
Yes.
So,
Have you spent much time there?
In Vancouver?
Yes.
I have family there. I've been there a few times, but there's a very different vibe. Like Vancouver is kind of like the LA, of Canada, and Toronto is very much like New York. East Coast,
yes.
right? And I won't say, I've been there, but I should say that Toronto, Montreal, like that side is much more like my thing. Yeah, well, because my family's all there, and like, yeah. But I think Vancouver's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Did you love it?
I loved it.
Everyone does.
Being from LA, I guess it makes sense that I felt at home there. I loved Vancouver. It was, I lived there for about 6 months straight, and we lucked out that it was June to December, and so we got summer, end of summer, fall, and then didn't really have too much cold toward the end, but
wow, cold. Vancouver's barely even cold. I mean, for you, for me, I grew up with like minus 40. Can you imagine?
No.
You've got to plug in your car if you want to drive the next day. Can you imagine?
To keep it heated? Or something?
You can't, it's like you would, not like to keep it, it's not on, but if you don't plug it in, it won't start.
Oh,
because
wow.
it's that cold.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like one of the coldest places in the world.
Plug in a car. But
You wouldn't have to know living in LA. I mean, it's like a whole different thing. In fact, actually, when I moved to LA, over time your blood thins. It doesn't matter. Your blood thins because you become like not used to that weather anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah. Then what made you go to Yale
from here?
LA? Yeah.
I was really excited to try something. None of my friends from high school were going there. I was really excited to try something new, try something different, meet new people, and kind of not reinvent myself, but in high school I was a jock. I played sports. I was known as like an athlete, and nobody really.
At 1.5.
Yeah. Oh man.
If they can see you now.
If they can see me now, it's on a 15 incline.
Oh, exactly. Well, we'll say it is. Okay.
And nobody knew I got straight A's in high school. I just kind of I just did my books, but I played sports. And so I was excited to go to a school where I could kind of rebrand myself.
Right.
And I didn't play sports in college. And so I don't know, I was just excited to try something different.
How was it growing up here? I mean, what was your experience? Because I think like your dad was an actor, right? So you were raised surrounded by this type of like the entertainment world, right?
Yeah. I loved growing up here. I think LA is an incredibly diverse city, and there's a lot to offer. You have a lot of nature, you have some city, aside from the traffic, which has progressively gotten worse as I've gotten older. But I loved growing up here. My dad was an athlete first at UCLA. He played basketball.
Right, I saw that.
For like a legendary coach named John Wooden. And
he played for John Wooden?
Yeah. Yeah, he played for Wooden. He's my dad was Wooden's favorite favorite player, or he calls him the smartest player he ever coached. Or
you see, that's a huge compliment.
They're very close. They growing up, they still would eat breakfast weekly. I would have breakfast with Coach Wooden, and my dad and him were very, very close before Wooden passed.
Wow.
And so then he was an actor, a television actor.
Hill Street Blues, right?
Hill Street Blues.
Yeah. I did my homework.
You sure did. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I loved it here. I thought that there was something for everyone, and there was enough to keep, to still make sure you were well-rounded, hopefully.
Right.
And then my mom lives in France, and so she moved to France when I was 6 years old. So I live with my dad here. And then I would spend vacations
in France
with her. So 5 months a year I was over there. And so that gave me like a really cool perspective on America, like a little bit outsider looking back.
You lived for 5 months of the year in France.
In France.
My homework obviously was not that good because I did not know that.
Yes, growing. And
wow.
Yeah, so from 6 years old till I was 13, I would spend that much time. And then 13 to 18 was 1 month a year, maybe something like, because of school and sports started taking over my life.
Is that why you stayed in the U.S. when they split? Like, because normally they would go with the mom, right? Like,
It was weird. I was so young that I don't really remember how it all shook out. Like my mom would ask me, "Do you want to live with me?" I would say yes. Then my dad would ask me, and I would say yes. And so fortunately, as adults, they were able to figure out some amicable solution.
And you just kind of split your time.
Yes.
Wow, that makes you very worldly, though, and cultured.
Looking back, going through it was really difficult.
Yeah.
Just not having both parents there. But looking back, I credit it for kind of a lot of who I am today, and like why I feel very fortunate for it in hindsight. Yeah.
That's amazing. And wow. So then how did you kind of go and ricochet from now you're working with Tim Story, doing all these great movies, and then kind of move past all that entertainment stuff into being like a successful entrepreneur? Like, what was the path like that?
So at maybe I was like 25 years old, I'd been working with Tim for a couple of years, and a good friend of mine that I grew up with named Baron Davis, who was an NBA basketball player, and he reached out to me. He's like, I need some help. I'm financing these movies, and I don't know where they are. And he just wanted some like a buddy of his to help him out, kind of producing. And so I sat down with him and we chatted about what we would do together, and we kind of formulated this plan that we would love to, tell stories that we were passionate about, things that we grew up kind of curious about, and that there was a real opportunity for us to do something somewhat disruptive in the entertainment space. And so we partnered up. I left Tim. It was very sad, but I left Tim. And Baron and I partnered up, and we started our production company. And we then started doing documentaries like Bloods and Crips, Made in America. The Christian Asoy documentary is a legendary skater.
The Bloods and Crips, was that one like up for an Emmy or?
Yeah, with that one we got shortlisted for an Academy Award.
Wow.
I think we got nominated for a News and Doc.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Emmy, and it was really well received. We were in a bunch of film festivals with it. We took it to like Sundance and the LA Film Festival. And the coolest part about it, a company ended up securing the rights to it, where they built curriculum around it, and it's now in colleges about that, because it's really the history of the Bloods and the Crips and how the Bloods and Crips came to be, and it's kind of like the definitive piece on the history of the Bloods and Crips in Los Angeles, and so it's now being taught in curriculum in colleges, and which is really exciting.
No, I would check it out, because I'm even very fascinated when I moved to LA, and I knew then what a huge thing that is, right? Like it's the whole thing, and I would like to know the history and the back end of how it all kind of like evolved.
Yeah, I mean, simply, Black people back then couldn't join the Boy Scouts. There weren't these clubs and outlets for young Black kids, boys, because of racism and segregation and all these other things, and so they formed their own clubs, and that morphed into, over time, what we know as the Bloods and the Crips. But originally it was because there was no other structured outlet for youth in the inner city in LA, and so they had to create something that they thought was a reflection of what they were looking at, not knowing that it would morph into what it has today. It was really fascinating. It was very eye-opening, and it was particularly interesting for Barron and I, because Barron grew up in South Central. I grew up in Westwood, and at a very young age, we kind of were made aware of kind of the difference, the value that's placed on human life just based on where you're born, and shit you have no control over. It's really just kind of the luck of the draw that put me in my family and him in his. And so we really wanted to, like, those kind of, that intersection, or that kind of, that was really the driving force, like why we wanted to make that doc in particular. And then
I think it strikes a lot of chords, though, because I think a lot of people see that, right? A lot of it is like luck of the draw, like where you were born versus somewhere else changes the whole trajectory of your life path.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes you don't get the opportunities. People are like, oh yeah, it's not just hustle, hustle. Sometimes you're not even given those opportunities based on such, arbitrary things that are not even in your control, right?
Absolutely. And it's like how fragile life is, and how you're always forced with these choose path A or choose path B, and not knowing that that's the path that you're going to continue.
Exactly.
And so
it's so true. Like it's sliding doors. You just do this a little bit, and then it takes you on a whole new thing.
New doors open, new opportunities open. I always talk about how life's a lot like just about momentum, and so a lot of people get stuck in, I don't have the thing that I'm passionate about, or I don't know what I love, and I don't know what I'm meant to do. And my advice is always like, just take that first step, because you never know what opportunities, like it will open new doors. It's just it's like inertia, just create some momentum.
First of all, Cash, it's very serendipitous that you say that. I'm doing a TED Talk on Sunday. Okay, and my whole talk is about that.
Oh, really?
About momentum. Yep, the whole thing. And in fact, it's all about like people wait too long. You gotta life is all momentum.
Yes.
And that's how things kind of keep on going and piling. But you can't sit and ponder and deliberate, because there's no inertia in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And nothing's ever perfect. So don't overthink it, because if you do, it still won't be perfect. And so the only way is to just put it out there, be vulnerable. But
no, it's 100%. Like that's exactly it. Like there is no such thing as perfection, and sometimes the imperfection is what's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And
totally.
so I'm a big
That's
believer.
Exciting.
Where
are you? Is that
Atlanta? It's in Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, we could talk about that
Are you
later,
nervous?
but beyond. Like I shouldn't even be on here right now. Like I cut the day short because I have to practice. It's a very it's exciting. It's all about like spreading, teaching people a certain thing, and it's a big platform, and it's just but I'm nervous. I can't lie.
Yeah, I imagine so.
I am. I'm not. I mean, it's exciting, but anyway, this is about you. This is about you.
All right.
Okay, so let's continue. So then, now you have this. You did all these docs, and and then how did it go from that to we're at you have a sock. And you have a sock and underwear company, and you've had a lot of successes between that documentary and to the sock company.
So I guess the end of entertainment for me was I started to feel like I was on a hamster wheel, and that every.
But you had success. That's what's interesting.
I did. I was lucky, but it still felt like I wasn't learning. I wasn't growing. That every project that I was starting, it was like starting from scratch, and it was just. I could spend 6 years on a documentary, and when it comes out, nobody really cares about it. It was just like, it was difficult for me. And so it just, like, I just wasn't that motivated to continue. I started a YouTube channel called The Knock. I sold that to Vice, and it became Vice Sports. And that kind of gave me a moment where I was like, what else would I want to do? And I'd always been passionate about products and building brands and wanting to build a brand. I'd never done it though. And so I figured like this was a good time to do it. And so I reached out to another kid I went to Crossroads with, Alan Stewart. And I was like, hey, I want to start a sock brand. At the time, all men's dress socks were like really thin nylon, like shitty dress socks that like you would like slip in your shoes all over. And so I found myself always wearing like Nike Dri-Fit running socks underneath those nylon socks. And to make them more comfortable. And I was like, Alan, like, I don't understand why we just can't make a dress sock that's also really comfortable. And he was like, I agree. And so he's creative, much like myself. And so we spent about a year coming up with brand names and brand creative and all this stuff that we would do with a brand. But we didn't know how to make anything. We didn't know how to manufacture products. We didn't know how to make it. And he said, and Alan goes, I went to UCLA with this kid, David Ehrenberg. He's spent his whole career in manufacturing and sales. Why don't we reach out to him and see if he can be of any help? And so reached out to David and met with David, and sure enough, the three of us then partnered up. And within a couple months, David had said, we got to fly to this part in China. Let's go meet with these people. Let's go figure out a way. And so we had our products, and it felt like the train was moving a little bit.
What year was this that you're talking?
This is in 2013, 2012, 2013.
Okay, so that's like maybe six or so years ago.
Yes, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. 2012, so 7 years ago. And David's other business, he worked with Target already. He was manufacturing bike helmets and sporting goods and wiffle balls for Target. And he said, I'm flying out to Minneapolis to meet with them about the other company. Should I try to meet the sock buyer? And this is an example of kind of like, I'd rather have like a mediocre idea with great timing than like a great idea with bad timing, because the buyer at Target gave him 5 minutes in the lobby. She was like in between meetings. He just had a deck. He showed her like the first 2 slides, and she was like, this is so great. This is exactly what I've been mandated to find. Why don't I give you a test run in 270 stores in the spring of 2014. And so David calls us 20 minutes later. He goes, I've never had this happen, but she just gave us a test run in 270 stores. And we're like, oh my gosh. So now
that's a huge test run,
which is a huge test run. And so we did it. You know, the cool thing about Pair of Thieves, is that I was also really tired of raising capital. I was tired of being beholden to investors. I was tired of board meetings for no reason. I was tired of kind of needing to project what this was going to turn into before it actually did. And so I wanted to start a business that I could self-fund, that we could self-fund with, you know, very little capital up front. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul. I haven't lost a bunch of money for other people, which does not feel good.
It feels terrible. And I hear that. A lot of entrepreneurs say that, right? Like it's exhausting, number one, and it's like that's really one of those burnouts, because you have the pressure constantly on, like, basically, like if you're gonna lose somebody else's, you know, millions of dollars.
Yes.
But so you guys all
self-funded this. We each put in $2,600.
That's it?
And so we started with $2,600, and we made our first samples, and we got our first order, and we
based on what? So you guys put in $2,600 each. You go and get your samples. You have this meeting with the Target woman.
She gives us a test order because of good timing.
The timing is very important, and now you have some momentum behind you, right? And then you got to make a huge run. That's 270 stores.
Yes.
How many are you now with the volume on that?
So that was a big first order for a company that was self-funded. And so what you have to do is get clever. You have to be clever. So we were able to cut favorable terms with our manufacturer, because when you have a company like Target, like a purchase order from a company like that, you can get credit fairly easily, because they're not going under. And so we were able to cut favorable terms with our manufacturers and our suppliers, and then we were able to cut net 30 deals with our manufacturers and suppliers and net 60 deals with Target. And so, or net the other way around.
Yeah,
net 30 with Target, net 60 with our manufacturers. And so that enables us to then take the money from Target to then just pay our manufacturers.
Right.
And so we didn't have to come out of pocket.
How many pairs did they order?
The first order wasn't too big because we only had 16 styles. We got end caps, 16 styles. I want to say the first order was maybe 70 grand or 100 grand or something like that. And so it was still pretty small.
But that's still a big, like 70
Yes.
grand, 70,000 socks or 70,000 in the amount? Is the
like 20,000 pairs of
so
socks.
So the purchase order was like 70,
Yeah,
okay.
something like that. And then we launched in spring of 2014. Fortunately, it did really well. And so by the fall of 2014, we expanded to all 1,800 stores,
Wow.
all 1,800 targets. And this is a time when we're running the business completely remote. We have no employees, no office, no overhead, no. David was living in Santiago, Chile. Alan was living in Portland, Oregon, and I was in Los Angeles. And so we would fly to Minneapolis, pretend we were this well-oiled machine. Like, let's give that to our head of development. Let's give that to our lead designer. And it was just the three
Right.
of us doing everything.
So how were you selling all these socks? What was the marketing behind it? Like, how did you get the word out?
All social. So it was,
Okay.
we didn't have marketing budgets. We didn't have
Right.
anything. Did you just go up a level?
I did, sorry.
The
Do you want
incline.
to match me here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What
No,
are you at now?
I'm at 0.1.
You're-
Incline. Oh, that's the incline.
No. Go to the speed. You got it. I'm at like a 2 incline or a 1.6.
All right, I'm at 1.8.
At what, incline?
I've burned points. I've gone 0.78 of a mile. 7/8 of a mile. How do you say
Me
that?
too, 0.79. But then your speed
0.79.
is at what?
Yeah.
1.6 or
1.8.
Okay.
What are you?
Now,
All
okay,
right.
I'm at 1.8-ish.
Okay.
Okay, so now you just now I was gonna say, what was I saying? So your market is all social media. You
All
said.
social.
So what did you post and
Yep.
I guess did Jessica post
Yep.
a lot and your two friends? Did you get a lot of your friends who have a lot of big followings to post?
Yes.
And that
we started gifting product out to various influencers and
The whole
hoping
thing.
they would post just the whole thing that everyone does. And yeah.
So you think what are your thoughts on that? Like, how could companies literally, like, you've seen it yourself, right? Like, you can actually legitimately carry a business based on the marketing of the power of social media.
I think that we benefited a lot from, and we continue to, the foot traffic in a Target store.
Right, brick and mortar.
is traffic that we don't have to pay for. People that we're not pushing that traffic
Right.
into Target, and so the amount of eyeballs that go onto your product inside of a store like that are substantial.
Is there
And-
advertising budgets you have to put in place on not social media, but like in mainstream advertising? It's like
TV and stuff?
Yeah, for Target to make a deal with you guys, or who puts the money in to, I guess, promote the products in there, right? Because these big stores are such giants that they can also they can crush you if you don't sell product, right? Because
Yes.
they can return it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how are they how
We
do
got
you,
lucky.
you-
It's pure. Like there's no way.
There's no way
other
around
way.
it.
No, we got totally lucky that our sell-throughs
We're really
clicked
good.
and they worked really well. And so we weren't. We didn't have to handle discounts and buybacks and margin
That's the stuff
guarantees
I
and all
wanted.
the stuff that can bite you in the ass at the end
Yeah.
of the day. We got fortunate that our sell-throughs were super strong, and we were really going after white space on their floor
Mm-hmm.
pad, meaning we identified there were no other brand selling product like ours in their stores, and so and their customers wanted it.
Right. So the competition was very limited in that
Yes,
space.
yes,
And
yes.
and also it's a very nice product. I mean,
Thank you.
And they're soft.
So we sit at an elevated price point inside of their stores. They look at us as kind of the premium offering. And so we care a lot about the quality. It's
Yeah.
still affordable, but we care a lot about the quality and we care a lot about the design. We weren't going after kind of novelty, putting, cat kittens on or
Right.
mustaches on this or unicorns. We were looking at fashion and we were trying to create designer socks. And it resonated with that audience. And so in a short amount of time, we've gone from making, 16 socks per season to hundreds. Our presence now is pretty substantial. We have 12 feet in all 1,800 stores.
Right. Wow.
12 feet of shelf space. We continue to grow, which is,
it's amazing.
knock on wood, it's been awesome.
I was going to say knock on wood. So you're not just in Target though, you're in a bunch of stores.
Yes. So the goal was always to, after getting off the ground with Target, we wanted to elevate the brand and create more value for that customer, but also elevate the brand. And so using our website, pairofthieves.com, and then starting to work with like Urban Outfitters and Anthropology and PacSun, and Opening Ceremony was one of our was the second retailer, which was we only did one program with them, but they're like a really influential boutique in fashion space, and so Opening Ceremony let us go into their stores, which was awesome. Selfridges in the UK we've been working with for 4 or 5 years. We have about 30 different retailers that we work with Pair of Thieves. Wow. Nordstrom's was always kind of like our holy grail. Right. That was always like, we want to figure out a way to get into Nordstrom's. We can get into Nordstrom's, that would be so awesome.
A lot of brands say that.
They have great customer relations, and they have a really clean aesthetic, and they just get it. And so working with them is kind of a stamp of approval in a way.
It's like Whole Foods for food, I guess, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is exciting, we just launched this month, Thieves Gold. With Nordstrom, so it just went into stores like in Century City and the Grove and everything, which is, thank you so much. They told us no for like 2 years, and we always were like, I think we heard a soft yes. And so we stayed at it, and it finally paid off. That's one thing about starting a business. You have to have thick skin, because you hear no more than, even though the luck of how we started Pair of Thieves, we've heard no more than we've heard yes along the way.
Yeah.
But you just got to roll with it. And if you're steadfast and if you're determined to make something happen, you can find a way to make it happen.
Right.
You just have to get creative. A good example is our blackout whiteout, actually. So that's a multi-pack of white socks, multi-pack of black socks that we sell.
I don't have them over here, but those are nice.
They're great. And so it's just multi-packs of white and black socks. We first pitched that program to Target. They said, no, you're a fashion brand.
Right.
We don't need more white socks. They have a ton of them.
Right.
And we knew that's where all, that most of the sales are in solids. Most of the sales are in basics.
These are everyday kind of.
Everyday things. And so we looked at the landscape and we were like, we have to make it cool. And we have to figure out a way. So instead of we call it blackout, whiteout. We attached a give back component. So for every pack we sell, we donate 3 pairs of socks to the homeless, like Bombas. We love what they're doing. Yeah. We're champions of the give back movement. And so
that's a big one right now. I feel like a lot of brands are doing that.
It's necessary.
It is necessary. Yeah.
I've done a lot of charity and nonprofit, and fundraising for that is a nightmare. You're always raising money to support your cause. If you can create for-profit business models that also help, that is the only way to build sustainability.
Oh my gosh! I started a breast cancer charity called Babes for Boobs, and it's the bane of my existence. I hate to say it because it's hard to raise money and to get people to do that stuff. So this is exactly, maybe you can make a sock that gives us, that donates to breast cancer.
I like it. Babes for Boobs?
Yeah, Babes for Boobs.
Nice.
And I auction off eligible men, and all the money we raise, me and my best friend started it just for fun and to give back, and all the money we raise we give to breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is auctioning off eligible men?
So like if you weren't married to Jessica, I would be like haranguing you to be part of my auction because you're perfect for it. Like we look for people who are eligible, successful, attractive, nice, smart, all that. And then we auction them off for dinner dates, but it's more for fun. Like no one's ever expecting you to whatever. And most people don't even go on the dates, to be honest.
Okay.
And we get like $10,000 a date, $5,000, depending on who it is. And then all that money we just give away to breast cancer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we do an event every year, and this one's coming up December 5th.
Got it.
So.
Well, if they don't actually do anything, why do they have to be eligible?
Well, they don't really, but that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Like if you, if they don't I shouldn't say some of them go out, but no one's expecting marriage proposals. It's
I
more
understand.
for like, it's more to have like fun. It's more for like a different spin than just going for a run walk.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and that was why I did it. But so
For
yeah,
a good cause.
it's for a good cause. Exactly. But what were we saying about now? Back to your
Pair of Thieves.
Pair of Thieves.
So,
Yes. Nordstrom's.
like,
How many Nordstroms? Like how many?
Nordstrom's
how
is-
many went in there? Like how many stores did they take?
We're launching it with 30 stores, so we're just doing a
Okay.
test with them. So it's really important that we do well.
Yeah.
So we're
Gotcha.
just in 30 stores to start, but they've been amazing partners thus far. We're doing some really cool stuff with them and their sales teams, their floor salesmen and women, and we'll see. Like because we're only in 30 stores, and because it's a small test, there's not a whole lot we can do on our end to help,
Right.
but we're doing our best. And fortunately, the team has grown considerably since it's just the three of us
Right.
when we started here. And so
how many employees do you have now?
now we have 35 employees
Okay,
or
wow.
40 employees, with maybe 10 more getting on board in the next 6 months or so. And
So what do you look at? Like, what's your strengths here? Like, because obviously, like, what I've seen, you've had like a lot of successes. This is not just like we all talk about luck, but you're also not a one-hit wonder, right? You had success by even with that little piece of Xerox paper, you know, photocopying that, or the page with Jim Wyatt, and then Tim. You had success there. Then you had your documentaries. You had the Vice Sports. I mean, like there's a through line, and the through line is you, right?
I appreciate that.
No, well, it's the truth. So what are those things about you besides like attention to detail with that photocopy thing that you think makes you a success?
I don't know. I will say that, in everything that I do, I look for teammates. I look to surround myself with people with skill sets that complement mine. I'm really honest about what I'm not good at. I'm more humble, and I'm honest about what I am good at, and so I make sure that I'm I've had bad partnerships where we both do the same thing, and if you're both doing the same thing, you both want this. I recognize that I'm not the complete pie there, and so I needed business partners that brought different skill sets to the table, and I think in my successful partnerships, those are the relationships that I've had. Complementary skill sets. And so,
Yeah, no, I think that's a big one. I think when you have two people doing the same thing or same strengths, there's an imbalance.
And a lot of times it works out because we become friends, and we're friends because we like doing this, or that we have similar personalities and we like doing the same thing. And talking turns into an idea that turns into a company, and you look up and you're like, shit, like we're missing somebody that understands operations.
Right.
We're missing someone who understands finances. We're missing someone who understands marketing, whatever it is.
Right.
And so what I've tried to do is get ahead of that a bit and kind of identify my weaknesses and look for people that have those strengths.
So what are your strengths then, and what are your weaknesses?
So my strengths are like vision, ideas, creative content, so marketing, and then sales would be kind of, and then company culture and stuff like that. But externally, those are them. And so with David, who's one of my partners, we overlap on sales, but he handles operations and finance, and then we overlap on business, like biz dev. Alan is decent at finance, so him and David overlap a little bit on finance. And then Alan is he's a designer, and so he's great at designing and website, and he understands coding.
Wow, yeah,
and so he
yeah.
understands the whole D2C world and marketing. He comes from an agency background.
Oh.
And so Alan and I overlap a tiny bit on creative and marketing. But so between the three of us, we cover kind of all of the basic things that you would need
Right.
in order to start an apparel company.
Right, and then, but besides the apparel company with Vice Sports, and what were you doing
So
in that?
there,
Yeah.
I partnered up with two amazing guys who are dear friends of mine, John Hirsch and Ron Yassin. They produced the ESPYs, and they have made some beautiful films along the way. They've created a lot of stuff, and so Ron is a great director, super creative. Him and I could overlap on the creative,
Right.
but he was more the director. I was a packaging producer, meaning
Yeah.
I could take an idea and then bring in the talent that we need to go make it happen, but I wasn't a line producer. I wasn't a physical producer, which is what John Hirsch
Right.
could do. He was the one who knew how to manage the budget. He knew all the vendor relationships.
Right.
He knew all of the union stuff. Like, he could handle a lot of the back office support as well as the on the ground production. And so the three of us together were able to then create a network
Yeah,
that we
network.
sold device. Yeah.
But it sounds to me that you're really good at picking really strong teams, to putting them together well, right?
Yes.
Like, you have like an eye for that. Like, okay, you know you're good at this, and that you're getting a really strong team to be able to execute really well.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I
that's a
also don't
talent.
overcomplicate it. Like,
Yeah.
I try to keep things simple, and I try to even in making socks, it's amazing how complicated things can get. And
Yep.
so you always have to take a step back and remind yourself, like, all right, what was our objective again? And kind of don't get too, I try not to get caught too much in the weeds, because I work better when I'm a little bit clearer minded.
Yeah, no, someone said to me one time, who's another guest came on, and he said that his whole thing is like the 5% rule. He focuses solely on the 5%. He knows what he's good at, and he spends, that's basically the 5% that he spends his time on, and he delegates everything else.
Yes.
And the truth is, that's how, you can be really successful that way, because you can get really, and I do this too, get caught up in the weeds very easily, and then next thing you know, like days, weeks, months go by, and you see no
Progress.
none, right?
Yes.
It's very easy to do that. So
That drives me nuts.
me too, right? So it's really important to know where you're good at and like
Yes.
stay in your lane in a way,
And I've always pushed I don't like feeling like I'm treading water. I
Right.
never like feeling like I'm running in
Right.
place. And so
Like now?
except on a treadmill. And I'm sweting, by the way.
No, you're not
How
actually.
I don't look like
you're
it?
just glistening.
Oh,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So whenever I've hit those lulls, or I feel like I look up in 6 months and I feel like I'm in the same exact spot that I was in mentally, emotionally, kind of, I try to find a way to shake it up. Like, I try
Right.
to find something that will help propel me forward,
Right.
back to the momentum.
Yeah,
You know?
it's all about momentum, and
yes.
I feel you on that. So even with like Honest, when it was starting, you were kind of involved at the beginning, right?
Yeah, when Jessica was pregnant with our first child, this is our Honor's 11 now, so this is over 12 years ago.
How many years have you been married?
We've been married 12 years, so we got married right before Honor was born. We've been together 15 years.
Wow.
And so
You're a kid. You're not kids, but you were young, very
we were young.
Yeah.
We were oh man.
Yeah.
Look at your wedding photos.
I
by the way.
know.
Congrats.
I know. Oh,
And
God.
she was pregnant, and I knew nothing about chemicals and products. I didn't know about
Right.
much about but in bed, she was always talking to me about, the world that she wants to create for our daughter and in our house, and that she's having such a hard time finding cleaning products and diapers, and she was really buying stuff from Europe and all these different
Right.
brands to kind of make it. And she was like, there's a need here to do the same thing. I didn't understand it, but I knew she was passionate about it. And so we would talk and kept talking. And eventually it just was like, well, let's put together a business plan that kind of articulates what we're just talking about in bed. And so I helped her work on that. And then, similar to the way I approach business, is what I was conveyed to her, which was, you need a partner. You need someone who knows how to do this, that can help you kind of execute your vision. And a dear friend of ours, a guy named Brian Lee, who was a really
Wow.
successful
Bedazzled was his too, wasn't it? Or
Shoe Dazzle and LegalZoom.
He's like a monster, that guy.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
He was. I was friendly with him. We would get together and brainstorm and kick
Yeah.
ideas around. And so I was like, we need to bring this to Brian and see if he would jump on board. I rented an office next door to Shoe Dazzle so he could, on his breaks, walk down to my office and hang out. And slowly but surely, we were able to convince him to jump on board and partner up with us and go do it. And so
That's amazing.
They first started working out of my office, and I'll never forget that. So I had this like beautiful office, like big, and I had no need for like the downstairs. I just put ping pong tables down there. It was like this Next thing you know, Honest has moved in. I go away for like a week for something and I come back. Jessica's moved into my office. Brian's moved into my desk was gone. I got kicked out of my own office in like 3 months.
That sounds familiar.
Because they scaled very quickly.
That's amazing.
But yeah, super proud. Honest is such, and it was interesting, like right around the time that we were launching that, or she was launching that, I started reading all these announcements in the paper, like, I think it was like Coke agrees to take formaldehyde out of Powerade, or and so you're starting to see all of these consumer products and brands, the companies removing these really harsh chemicals out of, and you're like, I didn't even know formaldehyde was in Powerade.
I know, isn't that crazy?
And so I think the world was kind of waking up at the same time, and so Honest was really fortunate to kind of went back to timing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
To be able to ride that wave of,
It's amazing though, timing, but your luck and timing, but you sound like you're very, I mean, you should have this is a whole other business for you. I think you should start a consulting firm where you just connect people who you think are like good matches to like build businesses. Because you're very good at it.
I'm telling
you seem to have like home runs all the time.
I knock on. No, I want Thieves to be a home run.
No, but I'm saying like, well, listen, I don't know how you guys are doing financially, but I'm saying you at least are. You're everywhere. You're all over Nordstrom's and Target and 30 other stores, and
it's a really healthy business.
It's a really healthy, exactly. And I don't think it just happens by accident. I think that there is something to say about like the people behind it putting like certain effort into it. So what are your habits every day? Like, what do you do every day besides not work out?
Yeah. I'm getting better. I'm like really enjoying this treadmill.
This is, by the way, a Woodway. It's amazing. Okay. I would recommend you.
Is it the one that you don't need?
No, this is the one that this is it's called a Forefront. So this one, it does both. So it's actually a treadmill that you can just walk on properly like this. But the shock absorption by the slides is very different than any other treadmill.
Oh.
And then you can also, there's a mode here where you can just basically like do a lot of resistance. I feel like a commercial.
Like the parachute, like resistance?
Kind of like where you can, if you want to put it on like dynamic braking mode here, you would basically use your own body weight for resistance to like push yourself off.
Got it. Yeah. That's what she was talking about.
Yeah, this is like a crazy machine.
Well, look at that. I hope they gave it to you.
Yeah, well, they definitely, I didn't pay for this one, thankfully, but I did pay for another one in my gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is like my favorite treadmill, like this whole brand. So I keep on getting sidetracked.
No, it's all right.
Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so wait, you don't work out, but you
my
start.
Other rituals. So with the kids, so we have 3 kids. We have an 11-year-old daughter named Honor. We have an 8-year-old daughter named Haven, and then a 1.5-year-old named Hayes.
These are great names. Who's thinking of these names?
Not us.
Really? Who's thinking of these names?
When she was pregnant with our first child, Jessica's manager at the time had 2 boys, and him and his wife we were really good friends with, and they said if we were having any more kids, a name that we always loved for a girl was Honor. And we were like, oh my gosh, we love that name.
That's a nice name, yeah.
And so we named our first child Honor. And then when Jessica was pregnant with our second child, a girl who worked with me that I grew up with, she came in the office one day and she goes, my sister just gave me the name for your second kid. And I was like, really, what is it? She said Haven. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love Haven. That's like
a great name too.
And Yale's in New Haven. There was like so many connections to it, and I just loved the name. And so when Jessica was pregnant with the third, we had these 2 H names. We were like, damn, that like we didn't do that intentionally.
Right.
But now like we have a third, so we asked our girls, like, should we name the little boy with an H name, or can we come up with something different? They said he'll feel left out if he doesn't have an H name. So we tried our hardest to find something that we were happy with. We actually named him something different on the birth certificate at first, like Hawking or something, and I was like, I really don't like that name, and so I had to like chase down the nurse in the hospital.
Oh my,
like,
really?
Yeah, can we change the name, please?
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I wasn't
funny.
sure. I'd never changed the name on a birth certificate.
Were they able to do that?
Yeah. They did it because we hadn't left the hospital yet.
Oh, okay. So if you would have walked out, they wouldn't have been able to?
I don't know. But it was like nerve-wracking. I was like, I hope I didn't just name him Hawking.
That's hilarious.
Not a good name.
What are you going to name your fourth child?
Oh man, you tell me. I have no clue.
Oh my gosh.
Never having a fourth.
Okay,
so.
well, I don't know. I mean, every time I turn around, you guys are having another baby. I don't know.
No more.
No more?
I don't think so. I think we're done. I mean, I love kids. The pregnancy, it's hard to be pregnant. I can't even I couldn't imagine it.
It's also when you're it's hard to be pregnant for sure. Then you pile on being a working mom, and then all the other things. I can't imagine how well. And she seems to have it all together, Jessica. She seems like she's like doing well at work. She's doing well as a mom. She has all the other things, the ancillary things. I mean, she looks like she's doing just fine.
Yeah,
but it takes a village.
And she's not a huge fan of being pregnant for 10 months.
God,
and
I'm not. It's awful.
Yeah,
by the way,
tough.
it's awful.
It's tough.
I don't know how people say I love pregnancy. I honestly I don't get it, but.
More power to them.
More power to them. So, okay, your habits, no exercise. What do you eat?
I eat pretty healthy.
Do you have a diet that you're following?
I do love, breakfast with my kids.
Okay.
So I'm a big breakfast guy.
Up? Let's start from the beginning.
Wake up around between 6:30 and 7.
Okay.
So 6:30 probably. Breakfast with the kids for school, and then on the weekends I cook. We do breakfast as well. I love cooking breakfast for them. That's like our quiet time, and we have a blast. So breakfast is a ritual. Watching sports on my couch is a ritual that I love and I won't give up.
Good. That's a good habit, and it's also an honest habit. And any guy who says they don't do that, I don't believe them.
No, I need it. I like quiet. I like me time and some quiet time. That reading, I love to read. I got into fiction not too long ago. I always read nonfiction my whole life.
I was going to say, what book are you reading right now? What's your favorite book of recent times?
It's an old book, but because I just discovered fiction more. It's The Glass Castle and The Light. Then The Light Between Two Oceans. I loved.
All this fiction.
I started reading fiction, which I'm totally okay with. I got into it. Podcasts I've started to get into in the last year as well, but I wouldn't say that's a habit.
Well, it is. That's a habit.
Okay.
I mean, are you how often are you listening to podcasts? And now that this is your favorite podcast, I would hope.
Absolutely. On my drive into work.
Okay.
My drive home.
That's when you listen to podcasts.
And then to put me to go to sleep at night. I like to listen to podcasts.
Oh, which ones are you listening to?
That I like to listen to murder stuff, true crime.
And
so
stuff popular right
that,
now.
Puts me to sleep. So
that's true crime puts you to sleep.
Yeah, Jessica's always like, why do you like listening to murder to go to bed? I was like, I don't know, it just makes me so happy that it's not me.
It's not you. I was gonna say.
I go to sleep so happy.
That makes perfect sense. But by the way, also the voices on those podcasts are so melancholy.
Yes.
It can put you to sleep. That's what I found. I was listening to one of them. I was getting my eyelashes done, and I'm like, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I was out because the boy, and then the guy stabbed her chest 47 times. And it's it's like a lullaby, right?
It really is.
It's like a lullaby how they have
is.
those voices. It sounds like they're just taking a walk in the park as they're brutally getting raped and murdered. It's so crazy. And so that's her habit.
Sweating.
Okay,
Yes.
what's another one?
Showers. I love showers. So I take a shower in the morning, a shower at night, 2 showers a day.
2 showers. You're clean.
I'm very clean.
Do you use Honest products?
Yeah.
You do?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
I would assume you would.
Yes, I do. I like all the body wash, all the lotions, all the face lotions, face wash.
You know what you should have done? I know you brought me so many of these pair of Thieves, which I love. But my kids, I always use Honest products on my kids. You could have brought me a box of that.
I will.
Okay.
When Jessica does this.
Oh yes, good. You're going to get your wife to do this?
Yes, she'll bring you the Honest stuff.
Okay, well
and
listen.
Honest Beauty.
And yes, I'd love to try it.
Yes. What was the foundation? No,
was it foundation?
That's something.
All right, so you promised me I'm going to get Jessica on next. And also, I'd love to have that Brian Lee.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right. He's kind of like quiet though, so you gotta like.
That's okay.
You gotta. No, I'm
I'll
saying like you gotta like find him. Like,
I'll find that. I'll find that spot that like gets him going. All right. So exercise, food. So you're not doing any crazy dieting like the intermittent, the ketos, the Atkins, the Mediterranean. You're just eating like a
I eat healthy. I'll eat like a salad at lunch, and then salad and a steak, or protein and a salad for dinner.
Right.
And that's the way I was able, like I've always been able to like keep like relatively like the same figure underneath the clothes, is because
you look great.
You're like just eating, like portion control, and just
It's
eating
all
healthy
eating.
and just not exactly.
80% of it's eating.
Yes.
The exercise is 20%, if that, maybe even less. So that's basically all the habits. Do you meditate? Do you?
No.
Okay. What's your favorite
Reading.
sport?
I'd sometimes count my breaths to calm myself down. Like,
Do you do breath work?
Yeah. Golf is my favorite sport now because I'm old.
You're not old. Are
Growing
you
up,
40?
I loved soccer and basketball.
Okay.
And then reading to my kids at night is another, I guess, thing that we do regularly. I don't really. My life's like about breaking patterns. I try, but
so it's not, you're not very ritualistic.
Not too ritualistic.
Because you want to. Because you said earlier, it's all, once you get too too comfortable, that's when you want to shake things up.
I do. At least, I like to.
That makes sense. And what's the last like kind of nonfiction book that you read?
What are some of your habits, though? Teach me.
Like,
how can I?
This is a podcast about you, but I'm more than happy to. I have the same breakfast every day.
Okay.
And
every single day.
Every single day.
For how many?
For 20. I'm like Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Because I like to have as many things on autopilot as possible.
Okay.
So if I need to think about what I'm eating all the time, it takes up too much brain power to be like, okay, what am I going to have today? Because I love food. I'm like a person that actually likes to eat. I'm not someone that's like, oh yeah, I forgot to eat. I've never forgot in my whole life to eat a meal. Okay? Not happening. I've never forgot. Oh yeah, I didn't have lunch today, because I'm thinking at 7 in the morning what I'm going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
So if I don't think about breakfast, I just know what I'm having.
Okay. Which is what?
Which is eggs with cheese, and I have peppermint tea, and I have cold brew coffee.
Got it.
Got it?
Okay.
And then, and a grapefruit.
Okay.
And a grapefruit. And then my other one is I exercise. I think that's a major one for cognitive function. I don't do it for physical. At this point, I don't care. I'm not trying to get a 10-pack, but I am trying to make sure that I'm as clear and focused and as alert as possible. And if I don't exercise, then it doesn't happen.
It doesn't work. Okay,
yeah.
I like that. I agree with that.
That's one. So once you start doing your stuff again, you'll see if you just kind of get past that hump of oh fuck, I don't want to do this, and you start getting in the groove, you're really gonna like it.
Be firing.
I think so.
Yes, I agree.
And you're working out now that you started. How many times a week are you gonna do it?
3. I started at 3 because it's an amount that I can hit.
You can hit, yeah.
And I won't always feel bad that I missed it. And so 3 days a week I'm doing, and then I'll ramp up to 5 pretty quickly.
Okay.
But to start, I'm hitting 3, and I want to find some success there. And then
you're going to be a superstar. You're going to be probably teaching a course pretty soon with that. That's how your personality is. You're like, okay, I can get this. I'll get so and so to run it, and I'll get someone to do that.
Fair.
And it will be perfect. Well, it was a delight having you. I know you got to wrap up. You have an appointment you got to go to. But this was really fun. You were a great guest, and we learned a lot of stuff. And for people who are listening, where can they pick? Well, Pair of Thieves, they can pick them up at Target.
Pair of Thieves you can find at Target, and you can find on pairofthieves.com. And then our new elevated assortment is called Thieves Gold, and you can find that at Nordstrom, or you can find that at thieves.gold.
Perfect. And how do we find you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's the thing I'm most active on, I should say.
Are you even active on it though, or?
I'm not too active, but I post
once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's not really,
No.
Okay.
But I enjoy it, and so Instagram is at @cash_Warren.
That's where I got screwed. That
yes.
underscore.
Yes.
Underscore. Well, thank you. And I hope to see you again. And
Same.
I hope to, best of luck with the new line.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me here.
I loved having
and
you.
I've walked 1.76 miles.
Check how many calories. Press that white button. The white one. How many calories did you burn?
167.
Good.
That's
190, but that's not much more. And so you just burned another, that you wouldn't have normally done.
Like a glass of water.
Basically that's way more than a glass of
That's
more.
more.
But this is something if we just sat down, you wouldn't
done anything.
Right.
It's smart. I'm surprised that I'm not out of. You hear all my heavy breathing though.
You're actually not even out of breath. And you're not even sweating. It's like at a very mild pace. Next time we're gonna do intervals.
Okay.
And we're gonna. You don't know what an interval is?
Oh, like running and then stop.
Yeah. And we're going to do it on a dynamic mode.
Okay.
This is going to be, so I'm all about HIIT training, but we'll tell you that later.
Okay. I'm excited. When is next time? We'll figure that out.
Okay, we'll figure that out. You're going to come on again for sure, but I'm holding you to that.
Habits and hustle, time to get it rolling. Stay up on the grind, don't stop, keep it going. Habits and hustle, from nothing into something. All out, hosted by Jennifer Cohen. Visionaries, tune in, you can get to know them. Be inspired, this is your moment. Excuses, we ain't having that. The Habits and Hustle podcast, powered by Habit Nest.